Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draw odds are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. Remember, when you become a member of GoHunt.com/insider, you're going to get a $50 gift card to Go Hunt Gear Shop. What's in the gear shop? The best gear that you can buy for hunting the West. All in all, if you're hunting out West in 2018, GoHunt.com/insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin, and we're heading out to Oklahoma, and we're going to visit with Sasquatch. Yes, Sasquatch lives in Oklahoma, and a.k.a. Chad Bales. And Chad's been hunting since he was 12 years old, and he loves hunting. In fact, he's working in the oil fields, and that supports his whitetail habit. So, Chad, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to hear your stories.
Hey, Bruce. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's always interesting to travel around the country as I do on the phone or on Skype or I actually use a audio video recorder called Blue Jeans. So it's really fun because I've talked to people from coast to coast up in Alaska and Canada, and it's a lot of fun to visit because we all got a story, you know.
Oh yeah, that's probably the most wonderful thing about hunting is, we've all got stories. Everybody's got stories to share, and I think anybody and everybody that hunts can sit and just talk for hours and hours about it, and it never get old.
Well, I agree to that for 100%. So let's just start off with your first story. At age 12, you went out and you shot a buck. So tell us about that.
Well, I actually got my hunting started probably when I was even younger than 12. My dad and uncles were always big into rabbit hunting when I first started growing up, and used to go out with them all the time. And then finally, whenever I was old enough to start deer hunting, I was able to go, and we just happened to be out one cold November morning in Missouri during rifle season. And what do you know? Here come a little deer. I thought it was just a little forked horn or a little spike. Ended up shooting him with my grandpa's 30-30. Don't think he really ran very far at all. And we walked over to him, and he happened to just be a little 6-point buck. And that buck still hangs on my wall today. He's probably one of my biggest trophies of all, just being my first deer ever.
Yeah, what a great memory. And so your dad and your grandpa got you started, and was that a Winchester or a Marlin 30-30?
It was a Marlin 30-30.
What was that, a 336 or something like that?
Yeah, I think it was a 336, had the golden trigger on it. Grandpa just had an old, I think, fixed 4-power scope on it. And, man, that thing still shoots like a dream. My little brother has it. It's one of his guns that he has. And, man, that thing, it's killed a lot of deer over the years.
Yeah, let's stay right there and talk about calibers and rifle. And my first shotgun rifle, was a Marlin 336, and I had a Weaver 4-power, fixed 4-power on it. And, I shot my first buck with that. And, you think about guns, and sometimes, the guns that our fathers used or uncles used or somebody used are just as good as some other guns in the right application. A 30-30 isn't going to shoot 300 yards, 400 yards, 500 yards. You could do it, but accurately, my belief, anything under 200 yards, you can put them down with that 30-30. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I have to agree for sure. Growing up in Missouri, it was all wooded and a lot of thick spots. So for us, a 30-30 was more than perfect because you'd be lucky if you got shots at a deer over 75, 80 yards, and it just always worked perfect. And of course, my dad, his favorite all time caliber was a 30-06, and so I think 30-30 is probably one of the most well rounded deer calibers that I've ever known of. So
And I'm got a 30 odd six also, and have used that a lot. But like you said about your 6 point buck, that 30-30, I'll never forget it because there was a deer and the trigger went, he dropped, and that was the end of the story.
yeah.
So when you think about hunting, and you're out working in the oil fields and stuff, what do you think about?
Man, I'm always thinking about like pretty much like what I'm going to do to better my setup, better to the property that I have to hunt. Whether it be trying to, am I going to be able to get in a food plot this year? Am I going to have time to get in a food plot for me? Since I'm usually working, sometimes I completely miss the best part of food plot season. So sometimes I just have to do without. But just thinking of new spots to put stands, or maybe thinking of a different spot that I can put a trail camera just to see the activity of the area on my property. The property I'm hunting here in Oklahoma, I've only been hunting it for probably 2 years now, so I'm still got a lot of learning to do. And it seems like each time I go to that property, I'm learning something new about that property and what the deer are doing on the property. So it's almost like never ending. So anytime I'm at work and I've got free time, I'm always just thinking, man, I think this time I'm gonna go in here and check out this spot, or I'm gonna go put a camera up in a spot and just see how they do, what the deer are doing.
Yeah, it really never ends, and more guys and gals that I talk to, they're 365-day hunters, and it comes from shed hunting to just thinking about food plots, and then watching your crops grow, and then setting stands, and then hunting, and then doing shed hunting all over again. So it's it's quite the sport, that's for darn sure.
Oh yeah, it's definitely never ending, and especially for me, since I work, I'm usually out of town for 2 weeks at a time, and I'm home for maybe a week at a time. Sometimes I really have to try to put in what effort I have in, I guess, the preseason slash postseason to really make my season the best that it can be. So that is the short period of time I got. I try to put in as much as I can. Sometimes it may be tough because we all got families, and try to include them in there. So
Yeah, you gotta balance the family in there, and balance the family with work, and then being able to get out in the tree stand for a little bit. But like we talked about, being a 365 hunter, there's always something to do. The season doesn't end for a lot of us. Now, some people, they go hunting for their 9-10 day season, whatever it is, and come home and hang it up, and take care of their deer, and they don't much think about it till next year, and that's okay too. I mean, because we're all a
yep.
little bit different, and it takes it takes us all to make the hunting community grow. Say back in, I think, 2015, you got started in the outdoor industry with a group called Outdoor Legacy. What was that all about?
Yes, sir. Ended up meeting some guys just through Facebook. I guess I was friends with them and didn't really know them all that well, and just happened to see one of them was talking about needing some pro staff for filming. So I was like, well, I'm just not getting into filming, so I messaged them and started talking to them, and just wanted to start filming hunts and maybe try to make a little show, and ended up kind of just started out helping them out, and we all filmed our hunts, so we were all trying to get hunts on film back then, and also at the same time we were trying to get a footstep into the hunting industry. Start by getting try to get some sponsors, which when I first started out with them, they'd already worked out kind of a little deal with the Whitetail Institute, and I was kind of shocked about that when I first got with them guys, that they would kind of get a little promotional deal with the Whitetail Institute, which I have to say is they are a great company. They help helped that group out a lot when I was with them. So, but we were lucky in the little short time that we kind of all stayed together and worked together. We were able to put, I think, 5 episodes out on YouTube. So, which how good they did, I guess I don't really ever remember looking and seeing how many subscribers or viewers we got, but it was kind of fun. And for me, that was kind of my footstep into the hunting industry. Started helping them get sponsors and started just talking to different companies. And from there, I found out that I have a knack for being able to, learning and working with some other companies. And it kind of just took my footstep from there to where I'm at now. So that was kind of my start in the industry, something I've always wanted to do actually all my life. Growing up watching Roger Ragland, Dan Fitzgerald, and way back in the day also the Hunter Specialties movies. Just watching all of that just kind of made me want to eventually, at some point in time of my life, become what I considered a professional hunter. Somebody that, that's what they get to do for a living, just hunt 365. So.
And it's a hard industry. I guess it's not hard, but it's a great industry, but it's difficult to break in and it's difficult to get your name known. As you and I, if we watch the Sportsman channel or the Pursuit channel, there's content all over the place and you go, wow, Bill Winke, is one guy that's made a great name for himself by just doing his own show with videos and a blog and other things. But it took him a long time. It took him a long time.
It's definitely, like I say, it's definitely a tough industry to get into because you've got so many people trying to get into it. Everybody's wanting to film their hunts nowadays, and you got people doing YouTube channels, and you got the outdoor networks like the Carbon TV and Gen 7 and all that stuff. That everybody's starting to put shows onto, which is actually awesome because it gives us really great content to watch and all that. But it's just like there's a lot of competition, and it makes it even tougher. So,
well, and one thing that I look at, the competition is tough, but the more content, the more opportunity we have to expose it to more people to say, what is this, Gen 7 TV? What is it? Or Carbon TV? What is it? And all of a sudden they start watching it, and just one thing somebody says, or one, hunt or whatever, somebody can say, I'm going to ask somebody about that. And, it's tough to make a living, in the outdoor industry because like anything, only so many people will really make it, substantially, but a lot of people make a pretty good living, doing what they love. And so, if you're going after that, more power to you.
Yeah, it's tough, and I do agree. It's all about getting the hunting industry out there, just getting hunting out there in general, and exposing it to more people. And because I know the numbers are on decline for us, which is not a good thing. But anything to help get the numbers up is always a good thing.
Yeah, it is. So, keep up the good work on that end. Hey, one thing, back in 2016, something traumatic happened to you. So let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So 2016 started out as a pretty good year. Kind of as summer come around, me and my dad ended up finding a piece of property in Missouri that we wanted to purchase. And so we were working on getting everything set up to purchase the property. And the day before we were going to close on the property, I'd went up to Missouri, and we'd already had permission from the people that we were buying the property from to go in there, start cleaning the property up, and to hunt the property. So I went in there the day before and was going to start hanging a tree stand because my dad had already been doing a lot of work and had trail camera pictures of some nice bucks. So I was like, I want to get there and see if I can hunt one, So October 4th, got to Missouri. That was probably around 10 o'clock or so, 10:30. Got out to that piece of property around 11 o'clock and had done a little scouting earlier on one of the times I'd been up there, but I went to go hang a tree stand. Started putting my sticks up on the side of the tree, started climbing up, had my harness on, had a lineman's belt, had all safety gear on to be safe while putting up a tree stand. I was about, I think, to the bottom of my feet was 6 feet high, and I was trying to put another set of sticks up onto the tree, and all I remember was hearing a pop. And next thing you know, I'm laying flat on my back on the ground, and I'm kind of confused for a little bit, and I finally get the nerves up to go ahead and get to my feet because I was like, "What in the world happened?" So I stand up, and as I stand up and I try to put weight on my left knee, it just completely collapsed on me. I had nothing to stand on my left knee. So as I'm standing there, kind of hobbling around on one leg, I'm looking around trying to figure out how did I fall? What gave way? And I just happened to grab a hold of my lineman's belt and ended up realizing that the stitching had gave away around the carabiner clip on my lineman's belt and caused me to fall. And I got lucky. If it had been another 2 minutes from then, I'd have probably been up anywhere from 10 to 12 foot high because I was in the process of putting a strap almost to the point of having my next set of sticks strapped up whenever I fell off the side of a tree. I did get lucky with my knee. I just really, really strained all the muscles, didn't have any tears or anything like that, but I was had my leg braced up in a full brace where I couldn't even bend my knee for, I think it was 2 weeks, and was hobbling around on crutches, which was, for me at that time, that was just tough. I was out of shape, all that. Trying to hobble around on crutches was no fun at all.
So let's go back to lessons learned. Did you pre-check your gear before you set it up? Was there any way you could determine it wasn't ready?
Well, honestly, I looked everything over, and I felt confident in my gear. I knew, because I'd used it just the year before. I knew everything. I think I just purchased it the year before, so I was thinking, man, this should be good to go. It's all brand new. I take pretty good care of all my equipment, especially at the end of hunting season. I put it all away, and I broke it out that year to, take it out and use it. I probably should have inspected it just a little bit better, but I did look it over, but I just did. I guess that's something I don't know if a person could foresee, is something like that. Just, stitching's giving away.
Yeah, I don't think you could unless, you look at them and there's been some gasoline, oil, pine pitch or something got on the stitches and started breaking them down, or you saw they're frayed. What's the guy to do? I mean, if it looks good and you tug on it and everything looks, like it should, and nothing's happened, because stuff happens. It gets closed in the truck door or whatever. I mean, stuff happens. That's why I mentioned, listeners, check your gear every year. And this is a perfect example of, maybe it wasn't preventable, by anybody, except putting it on a machine or something, trying to rip it apart. But when you fell, did you have a way to contact your dad, your wife, a friend?
I got lucky. My wife had come with me. They didn't walk to where I wanted to put the stand up. They actually just kind of hung out up at the front of the property around the pickup. And I had my cell phone on me. I was able to get it out of my pocket. I called her. She come in. Or I had to kind of talk her into where I was at. Luckily, I wasn't, but a few hundred yards away from the truck, and was able to talk her into where I was at. And she tried helping me. It was kind of tough. My daughter was kind of causing some issues, and I did call my dad to come help me, and he made it there in no time. He took off work and he said he just left. He said he hadn't drove that fast in a long time. It was kind of funny because it didn't seem like right from the time I called him to the time he got there, it was very long. But he ended up getting out there to me, and because he knew exactly where I was at. He knew the exact spot where I was already wanting to put a stand, so it made it kind of easy. He come out there, helped me hobble my way all the way back to the truck, and went to the doctor from there.
Did you think about calling 911 or, the local sheriff?
No, honestly, I didn't, just because I knew I had people available. But had I been by myself, yes. And I think anybody, in a situation like that, if you feel like you need help, make sure, get a hold of the appropriate people that can help you. So.
Yeah, that's the other thing, especially out west. When I would head up a trailhead or drop into a canyon or whatever, I always left a note, in my car on the windshield. And even if it was going to be bad weather, you just put it in a piece of plastic and say, hey, I'm heading up, Bruce's Draw. I expect to be in there for a day and a half, 2 days. If you don't see me by October 10th, then I'm in trouble. And, and that's just as smart to do any place, and we hunt the same 40s, or 80s or, 160s, and we think we know it so well. When it gets dark and you haven't told somebody, hey, I'm at buckwheat stand or, overlook stand or whatever, it can make a hard night on a lot of people, and you're laying there, wanting and needing help. So that's just a recommendation from this guy. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, always make sure that somebody knows where you're going. Uh, you may be hunting in an area, where you may be the only person that hunts that area. Your wife or somebody like that, may not know exactly where you're at all. Try to make sure somebody at least knows where you're at, or if they know about time you come in. If all right, if he's usually home by 7 o'clock, if he's not home by say 9:30, 10 o'clock, might want to check up on him, or because something could happen. I know I try to make it a habit. The new property that I was able to hunt down here in Oklahoma, I've already made sure I've taken my wife out there a few times, and drove out that way, and had her go out there with me, so that way she knows, all right, this is where he hunts at. If something happens to him, I know how to get there. So not only I've got other friends, because friends that know how to get there that hunt that property with me, but at least if they're not available, my wife knows how to get there. So I definitely think that's something important. I know a lot of people like out west, they have like their Garmin inReaches and stuff like that, which is very important piece of equipment. I guess growing up deer hunting, I've never had a use for the handheld GPSs or anything like that. So it's something I've never used, but I know I've been thinking about one since I am thinking about going out west in the next couple of years to hunt. But maybe even something like that for people who hunt by themselves a lot, to have some way to communicate in a situation if they need help.
The one unit you talk about that a lot of guys use that I know is called SPOT, SPOT, and lets you just, send a thing. Hey, Chad, doing well. Everything's fine. I'm in, St. George, breaks, and, talk to you tomorrow. And just keep check, or you can hit, the, you're really screwed up. So you hit the panic button and it alerts the state police and 911. Everybody in the world knows that, here's the coordinates, and, you're in dire straits. And then they have things all the way through it. And somebody else was mentioning, and folks, if you know who it is, send me a email at whitetailrendezvous.com and let me know. There's another company out that you can text, just an active text. It's not pre-inputted, but an active text. So let me know about that, because our safety, your safety is critical, because we all have loved ones that want us to come home. Yeah, they want us to have a great hunt. They want to have us bring meat for the table, but they also, more than anything, want us just to come home.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, safety's first. And I guess also with me and my job, working in the oil field, that's something they preach to us all the time. Day in, day out, it's something they drill into our head. And so for me, I definitely try to incorporate in to my hunting, because I know that can be just as dangerous. I mean, especially climbing 20, 25 feet up in a tree for some of us. I learned luckily the one situation, falling 6 feet, not 20 foot up. If it had been 20 foot up, there's no telling what could have happened.
Now, you mentioned in your bio that you're thinking about maybe doing some YouTubing and putting a course together, or doing some talks about tree stand safety. And there's tons of information out there, but sometimes, we need somebody like you to say, this happened to me, and, don't let it happen to you. Have you thought more about that?
I've thought about it a little bit. I'm still learning a lot about YouTube and doing all that different stuff, and just learning more about actually, photography, videography, and all that stuff. So there's something I've thought about doing, just adding in, different parts of tree stand safety, and maybe even trying to look at different pieces of equipment for tree stand safety. I know one piece of equipment that I found after that accident that actually kind of made me feel safer, I guess, for climbing a tree stand, hanging, like using a hang-on tree stand. And it's a set of climbing sticks made by Hurricane Safety Systems. They are a what they call a gravity forward safety system that they kind of angle towards the tree as you're climbing up. So that way you're not having to do like with a normal set of climbing sticks where they're almost right up against the tree. And when you're having to hang them, you're having to use the lineman's belt to kind of lean back into, like I was doing whenever mine broke and gave way. This here, you're kind of leaning more towards the tree. You still want to obviously wear your safety harness. I still use a lineman's belt whenever I'm putting it up. But the hurricane safety, the steps, it's almost like a ladder, and it angles towards the tree. So that way, as you're going up, you're leaning forward, not backwards. And I think that there was whenever I seen that, I was like, that's a game changer as far as hanging climbing stands for me, because now I'm not being right on the side of the tree. It made me feel safer and actually made me not scared to put another hang on stand up after my accident.
Well, that might be one company that you'd reach out to and say, "Hey, I had an accident and I'm using your stuff now. Let's put something together so I can tell others, and you can get some resources from them that you wouldn't have any otherwise." So, just a thought.
Yeah, that is a good thought. Very good thought. I'm gonna have to do that.
Because you just never know, and that's the other thing in the outdoor industry: right place, right time. Meeting the right person, relationships are key, and all that. And you meet people, and you move on, or you meet people and say, "Hey, let's stay in touch." And all of a sudden, a couple of years down the road, they say, "Hey, we were talking about this. I'm ready to do that project. What do you think?" And that's how it happens. A lot of the time. It's.
Oh yeah, I have to agree with that. Yeah, and I've noticed that over the past just couple of years. I've met so many new people. Got to work a few trade shows for some companies that I endorse, and just working those trade shows, getting to meeting so many new people. It's been pretty fun. And some of them have become almost just like lifelong friends. Like, I mean, I talk to them almost every day. So
sounds good to me. Let's talk about hunting a little bit. Listeners, we're going to transition to a couple of seasons here, and 2016. Let's tell us what happened there.
Well, obviously after my accident, I wasn't able to go back to work for a couple months. Was it fate that it happened to happen during hunting season? That I don't know. But 2000 after falling off the side of the tree, having my leg fully braced up, being on crutches, it didn't slow me down one bit. I had a friend of mine. He was more than willing to help me set up a ground blind. I was able to crutch into the ground blind and hunt. And I can't remember the exact date, but it was kind of later October. And ended up was hunting one evening, and it was actually a really exciting evening. Had one doe come in. She was kind of milling around the feeder, and she kind of moved out a little bit. The next here she come back in, and there was a buck behind her, and he was kind of busted up, broken off. And I was like, man, but he was grunting at her. I was like, wow, this is cool. I mean, he was grunting and all that stuff. They come in, and I was seriously thinking about shooting him. I was like, man, if he gives me the shot, I think I'm going to shoot him. And I was using a crossbow at the time because I didn't feel comfortable that if I was to make a bad shot with my normal bow, that my buddy would have to go track this deer. I didn't want him to have to track it forever and ever and ever, since I was still pretty hobbled up. So I opted for a crossbow. And I'm sitting there watching this deer, and I'm thinking about shooting him. And I just happened to, out of the corner of my eye, look over and seen another deer and coming. And then next thing he stepped more into view. And it happened to be ended up being an 11-point buck. He walked right in, gave me a perfect 25-yard shot, made a good shot, and the buck, I think he ran maybe 50 yards. Didn't even get out of the clearing that I was sitting on. So luckily for my friend that was helping me out during that time, he was able to just back right up to the deer with the truck and load him right up. Didn't have to do a whole lot of work, which made me feel good because I was like, he's already done enough for me. I'm on crutches and hauled up anyways. So just that right there made it nice. And then about 3 weeks later, I went to Missouri for gun season. Luckily, by then, I was in a movable brace with my knee. I wasn't so much relying on the crutches as I had to before, so I was able to get around a little bit more. and went to Missouri. Was enjoying the gun season up there. Something I try to do every year is try to make it up there for the gun season. And I'd went hunting in the spot that I had been chasing a deer. I feel like I'd chased him for about 3 years. I seen him a few years ago on the property while bow hunting, having to be walking in to go bow hunting. I was just planning on sitting on the ground, just going to pick me out a tree along this ridge top and just sit there and see what happens. And it was kind of windy that afternoon. I was walking in. I got pretty close to the spot where I was thinking about finding me a tree to sit at, and I just happened to look over, and there's this buck just kind of walking along this ridge over at the edge of the ridge, and he was about 55 yards away, and just perfectly broadside to me. I had no clue in the world I was there, and 55 yards with the bow, windy. I was just kind of like, nah, I'm not going to risk that shot today. So I tried sneaking a little closer, thinking, maybe the wind will kind of, cover my sound moving in, and ended up spooking that deer off. I think my dad seen that deer one other time on the property. He was not able to get a shot. And then the next year, I seen that same deer, was not able to get a shot again. Where he come through at. But this time, I went in there early in the morning, got set up, just sitting in a chair, just took a fold-out chair, stuck it up in the back of a little bitty cedar tree, and was sitting right on the ground. And done a little calling that morning and seen some does. And next thing you know, I can just hear footsteps. I was like, man, these footsteps sound extremely close. And I'm looking around, trying to find where these footsteps are at. Next thing you know, from my right, out of the brush, this buck literally just walks. Just seemed like he come nowhere out of this brush. It is standing at 20, 25 yards, just looking straight at me. And I'm just like, oh man, what do I do? I couldn't move. And it seemed like forever that I just was watching this buck out of the corner of my eyes, trying not to move because I knew if I moved any little bit, he was going to take off. And finally, the deer turned and started kind of walking at an angle away from me, which allowed me to get my gun up. He turned and kind of started coming across in front of me and stopped. And of course, whenever he stopped, there was like two little bitty saplings right in the way of getting my shot. So I was like, man, there's no way I'm not going to get this shot. So I tried leaning over, trying to get past them trees. And I don't know if it was just that little bit of movement, but that buck ended up spooking. And my heart just almost sank instantly. I was like, man, you got to be kidding me. He ended up stopping about 60, 70 yards away on this little bitty hump. And all I could see was from his shoulder up to his neck through this hole in the brush. And I got lucky and was able to squeeze up the shot and dropped him right there in place. He ended up being a really nice old 9-point. And I was pretty positive it was that same deer that I'd been chasing for a little while on that property. He's probably the oldest deer I've shot yet.
Yeah, I like the takeaway. You put your butt in the ground, and a lot of people are realizing that that ain't a bad way to hunt, especially if you haven't hunted a plot of land or acreage before and get a sense of what's moving. We can luck out and first sit, buck walks under us out of a tree stand, you shoot him, or you can sit on a ridge with your binoculars and you get your bow, or your rifle, or muzzleloader, or whatever, and then you can kind of take it all in and see what's moving, see what's not moving, and go from there. But I've heard a lot of guys ground blinds and just literally taking one of those what do they call them, a canoe back brace or something. It's ensolite and it's warm, so the ground's wet, and they just pop that against the tree and sit there and just literally see what happens. And I think of the days that I've hunted, and bucks do come through. If the wind's right, you have to still do everything right, but bucks will come through.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like growing up in Missouri, we did that a lot. We had a lot of different places that we could hunt. We didn't have a lot of tree stands. We would just, especially come during rifle season, we'd just kind of go walk out on a ridge to where we had a pretty good little vantage point and just sit down beside a tree, see what happened. I've killed many a deer just like that. Just be sitting on the side of beside a tree on my butt. Here comes some deer. I mean, still gonna have to know the area a little bit. And some of the spots, we'd go back to that kind of same area over and over again, every year. But it wasn't nothing fancy. Just almost like you go out west. You go out there, you glass, you see the animals, you make the shot. Except for Missouri, a lot closer quarters. When you see the deer, usually they're right on top of you before you knew it, and you're like, wow, where'd they come from?
Yeah, I've had many of naps woken up by squirrels, and a couple of them weren't squirrels.
Yeah. Oh, I've been there too. Definitely been there too. You're just like, oh man.
But that's part of it as far as I'm concerned.
I think some of my best nap times has been when you're sitting out there, especially you get out there cold of a morning, sitting there beside a tree, and you're pretty cold, and as the sun starts coming up, you start getting warming up, and then as sun gets up there just high enough, maybe around 9, 10 o'clock ish, and it's really starting to warm you up, but it's still nice and cool out, but you're getting warmed up. I don't know how many times I've just sat there beside a tree and just next thing you know, you're waking up, you're like, oh man, it's an hour or so later.
Yeah, it happens. Unfortunately, it happens a lot out west also because, you're working really hard and you're up at 4 o'clock. And just like you said, 10 o'clock, you break for tea or coffee, or you just take a break and maybe a little snack. And all of a sudden you're just sitting and it's not warm out, but the sun's warming you up and you're out of the wind and you're sleeping.
Yep.
Well, what happened 2017 then? 2016 looked like it was all right.
Yeah, 2016 I guess was my good year because I killed 2 really nice bucks, and then this year I just guess my luck wasn't on my side. Started out, I got to go to Missouri and hunt on that piece of property that we had. Seen 3 really nice bucks and seen them like 3 days in a row. Just could not get it. Make every day it was like something just wasn't quite right where I could get could make the shot, which. That's typical deer hunting. It seems like one little thing could be off or something, and so nothing happened there. Didn't get no deer up in Missouri. Oklahoma, I hunted hard. Didn't even see a buck down here in Oklahoma while I was hunting, and seen quite a few does and a couple really small bucks, but no just decent bucks. Didn't even see any. And it was just like, man, am I doing something wrong? And I didn't even have them on camera, which I think I figured a lot of it here in Oklahoma. We have hogs so bad that I think the hogs came into the area that I was hunting this year and were in there a lot. And it kind of kept the deer kind of pushed into a different area that I wasn't able to hunt because I just didn't really see them. And I did get lucky and got to make a trip out to Kentucky at the end of October and got to go out there and hunt for 4 days. And it wasn't a bad hunt at all. Seen quite a few deer, and I ended up seeing 3 really nice bucks. Had one come chasing a doe right behind me, come grunting. This doe came through, and next thing you know, he comes grunting, just grunting his head off right behind, not long behind her. But he just come through so fast. I didn't even get the chance to turn around, get my bow up, to even think about it. It was just like he was there and gone. And he was an amazing buck. The little bit I got to see him, he had the dark chocolate horns, and just boom, he was there, gone. So Kentucky hunted hard 4 days. I mean, hunted hard, like almost all, I think we maybe stopped for like an hour right in the middle of the day, caught a quick lunch, and then we were right back to the stands. And just, it didn't happen for us. And my whole season seemed like that. I hunted hard. I did get to take a couple of does and put a little bit of meat in the freezer, but the bucks it wasn't in my favor this year. So I took tag soup home on that.
And there's thousands of people who could, stand up right with you and say, it doesn't come together. There's deer all around you, but the right buck doesn't come through. The right doe doesn't come through. Where you got a shot, you just scratch your head. And other years, you're, like we said, sit behind a tree, the buck walks up and you shoot him.
Yeah. It definitely seems like it just, every year is different. I mean, every situation, every hunt's different. And I guess that's what makes it so enjoyable is that every hunt is, you never know what's going to happen. Something happens totally different every time you go. So,
well, let's wrap up the interview here, the show with you've implemented a new support supplement program. Pardon me, for deer on the lease you have in Oklahoma. Let's talk about why you did that, what you're using, and what you hope to gain.
Yeah, so Here, this has probably been the second year I've got to know the owners at Shock Effect Probiotics. Got to meet them at a show up in Iowa, and just kind of started talking to them at the show, and then kind of progressed from there and become really good friends with them, and just started learning more about, all right, what can I do to, maybe increase the size of the deer that I have on the property, or just maybe help keep more deer on the property that I have. And I started using some of their products. Just started out first, just mineral, not trying to go very expensive or anything like that, just simply putting out some minerals for deer. And this year I decided to give they have a new product that they come out with called it's an antler tech pellet, and it has a few of their different little other products that they have. I'm not too technical with all of the products, but it's got some of their other products that they use for to help with antler growth and all that in this one pellet. And I believe one 2 pound bag of pellets will treat 200 pounds of corn, so it's not too bad. Anyways, I've got the pellets. I've got that I'm implementing into my feeders, adding it in with my feeders, and trying to see how that's going to do for my deer this year. I know they've had really good luck with it. They've tested it on a lot of farm deer and just seen, some really good results from that. So kind of excited to be taking their product and putting it in with wild deer. And they're starting to actually try to get more onto the side of wild deer. They started out with just pen raised deer and, deer farms and all that stuff, but they're really taking their products and trying to also get into the hunting side of it to, just help anybody that has, deer on their property, help them make them bigger without, having to, you may not have a spot to put a food plot in, to help give them the nutrients from a food plot. But if, maybe your state allows you to, put a feeder out or something like that, which most states, I think in the off season, you are allowed to bait in the off season, but you may not be able to bait during hunting season. So you can at least during that growing period, put out some corn, add these pellets into it to help give your deer that little bit more than just, just feeding deer corn.
So have you taken a census of what your herd size is on that land in Oklahoma?
I really haven't been able to. It seems like every time, I know there was one day we went out there here not too long ago, and I think I counted 20 deer on that piece of property, like just in one spot. Like I couldn't believe that's the most deer I'd seen at one time on that property. Seems like most time I go out there, I see 6 or 7 deer. So to see like 20 deer on that piece of property at one time, I was like, wow. And so, but I really haven't had a chance to do that. Time wise, I haven't had as much time to do something like that.
A lot of people tell me that's real helpful, especially for a supplement program, because you want to see if you can find the age class, and different deer need, different supplements to maximize. Yeah. Deer will use a supplement, but on a 1.5, 2.5, 3.5 deer, maybe he needs X, where a mature deer 4.5 and up needs something else, and then you get up to the old guys 6.5, 7.5, they need something else also.
Yeah.
To keep the growth coming and keep them healthy so they can breed. We want healthy deer so they can breed, so we get more deer and we got a good gene pool.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's one thing I feel like with their product, especially just the Antler Tech product, it's a good overall around product to help just your overall health, herd health, and just as far as overall antler growth. I know they've in some of the deer, even some of the free range deer, they've seen up to a 20-inch difference between, I believe it was 20 inches between 1 year. So I feel like that's a lot. I'm not a trophy hunter by no means, but 20 inches of antler growth is, I feel like, a lot.
I would agree. Well, with that, Sasquatch, I think we're going to wrap the show. Do you have any final comments to the listeners?
Just main thing, just be safe out there, especially tree stand hunters. Definitely always double check all of your equipment. Take 5 seconds before you even think about climbing up the tree to double check. Make sure you got all your straps that you're using to hang your stand are good. And even your safety harness. If you've had a safety harness for a couple of years, I'd say it's probably about time to, just think about going ahead and purchasing a new one. But that's about all I got, Bruce.
All right. Well, Chad, it's been fun. I know we kind of bounce around trying to get this thing put together, but it's just been a joy to talk to you. And you're a real guy. You got great information, and I'd sure love to be able to hunt with you sometime, or just sit down and talk whitetails again.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. I think we've missed each other a couple of times at some hunting shows. We may have to actually just take the time and some of the trade shows that we go to and sit down and have a talk.
I'd love to do that. And a lot of my friends in the business, Windless Attitude, well, they just Blake Alma. A lot of guys go to these trade shows now, put up a little booth, and then as people walk by, they'll do a podcast just like this, typically shorter, but they can get longer. It doesn't matter, but it adds some additional content to the trade show. But there's some takeaways that sometimes you wouldn't get. So I'm looking forward to that next season and to be able to do that. So, Chad, on behalf of thousands of listeners, we're almost to 250,000 downloads and 500 episodes with Whitetail Rendezvous. So, we've come a little way, and we got a long way to go to bring great content to the outdoor industry. But guys like you make it real fun.
I greatly appreciate you having me on the show, and it's been a fun time, and I look forward to being able to do it again.
On today's episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, we're heading over to the Keystone State, yes, Pennsylvania. We're going to visit with Christian Berg. Now, who the heck is Christian Berg? Well, a lot of you out there know who he is, but did you know he was born in Rhode Island? In 1997, he was with a newspaper called The Morning Call, and he was a news reporter. So media and writing up and doing all the things that newspaper reporters do has been in his blood for a long time. Oh, also, by the way, he's quite a good bow hunter. All that shaken together, baked for about an hour and a half, more than like 10 years. Anyway, Christian Berg comes out as the editor of Peterson's Bow Hunting, one of the most respected and popular archery magazines in the nation. And if you haven't picked up a copy of that, why don't you do it online or go to your local Walmart and pick up a copy of it. That all being said, you're in for a treat because Kristen's got more stories than we got time to share them. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.